Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're stepping out of the blazing summer heat and into a quiet, shadowed room to piece together fragments of a forgotten time. Have you ever tried to reconstruct a story from decades ago, only to realize the clues you find completely contradict each other? Well, that is exactly the situation we're exploring today. We are diving into a deeply atmospheric, meticulously crafted mystery. It's a 33-year-old secret, basically buried in the decaying archives of Kamiyama High School. We're going to watch as four very distinct minds from the school's classics club take these isolated, seemingly incompatible historical clues and slowly, deliberately construct the truth. It's this fascinating, methodical process of trial, error, and just quiet, lingering tension. So get comfortable, clear your mind, and let's reconstruct the past together. Now, I want to start with this, as it was not intended to be a heroic tale. This single, honestly kind of haunting line was written 32 years ago in a club anthology called Hyouka, and it's our anchor for today. Notice how it immediately sets this heavy, melancholic tone. It tells us right away that whatever went down at this high school in 1967, it wasn't some glorious romantic adventure. No, it was something complicated, something burdensome. And for Chitanda, the current president of the Classics Club, this investigation is profoundly personal. You see, this historical mystery holds the key to the life of her uncle, Sekitani Jun, and to a tearful childhood memory that she desperately wants to understand, but just simply cannot grasp. But to really understand the gravity of this investigation, we first have to feel the atmosphere of where it's taking place. Imagine this. It's late July. The air outside is just thick with that overwhelming, oppressive heat of the Japanese summer. You've got the relentless hum of cicadas and the blinding glare of the sun reflecting off these vast, sprawling rice paddies. But inside the Chitanda family estate, which is this grand, traditional Japanese mansion, the world completely slows down. The elegant pine trees, the soothing sound of water trickling in the courtyard garden, the deep, cool shade, it all provides this insulated sanctuary. It's like a bubble, suspended in time. Honestly, it's the absolute perfect isolated environment for dusting off a 32-year-old secret. And right within this sanctuary, we find our setting for the day. A high-ceiling tatami room, a cool breeze slipping through the sliding paper doors, and four students gathered around a dark wooden table that's just scattered with notes. You can practically feel the quiet tension settling into the room. This isn't just some chaotic, loud brainstorming session. It's a formal, structured meeting chaired by Chitanda. And what makes this so incredibly fascinating is that each member brings a very specific archetype to the table. Think about it like a puzzle. Chitanda is the emotional core, Satoshi is the walking database of historical context, Maika is the rigorous fact-checker, and Oreki, he's the lateral thinker. They're going to present their theories one by one, debating the merits and flaws of each in a deeply engrossing, collaborative attempt to find the actual truth. Okay, let's dive right into the first theory, which is presented by Chitanda herself. She looks at the undeniable fact that her uncle dropped out of school right around the time of the October Kanya festival. She cross-references this with the school handbook, which strictly forbids violent behavior. Putting these rather sparse details together, she proposes a pretty heavy hypothesis. She thinks that during the festival, an anti-establishment disturbance broke out, and her uncle responded with physical force. Now, because she lacks hard data, she's kind of grasping at straws here, projecting this narrative of a tragic hero onto her uncle. According to her theory, he took responsibility for this violence to protect others, ultimately facing expulsion as the ultimate consequence. Now, at first glance, a violent riot at a standard high school festival might sound a bit extreme, right? Maybe even a little melodramatic. But this is exactly where Satoshi Fukube, the club's resident database of trivia, steps in to provide some absolutely crucial historical context. He reminds the group that they can't judge the past by today's standards. They are looking at the late 1960s. And the 1960s? Well, that was an era defined by global student movements, massive anti-establishment protests, and aggressive campus strikes. So suddenly, Satoshi's trivia completely validates Chitanda's fears, making a violent rebellion seem terrifyingly plausible. He argues that violence wasn't just possible back then, it was literally woven into the cultural fabric of the times. Just as the violent theory really starts to take hold, Hautaro Oreki, our brilliantly logical thinker, steps in to gently dismantle it. And he doesn't aggressively attack Chitanda's idea. Instead, he applies his signature energy-saving logic to just softly pull at the thread. Oreki asks a very grounded question. Why would anyone riot at a cultural festival? Usually people cause disturbances to, steal money from stalls. But wait, actually, Oreki points out that exhibition booths at their school are traditionally not allowed to make sales. There was simply no money to steal. So if the motive wasn't financial, what ideological reason could possibly drive high school students to violence over a simple festival? It's a brilliant reminder for any researcher, really. Always look for the motive. And without one, Chitanda's theory definitely begins to waver. And just as the motive starts falling apart, Mayaka Ibarra drops a piece of hard, documentary evidence right onto the table, completely changing the direction of the debate. She's uncovered a 32-year-old manga studies club anthology titled Unity and Salutations. The prose in it is intensely dramatic, but the facts hidden within it are startling. The document explicitly mentions a great strife that occurred not in October during the festival, but in June. It describes Sekitani Jun offering heroic support to the masses in a struggle against the powers that be. This revelation sends a literal shockwave through the quiet room. I mean, this entirely shatters Chitanda's timeline and the core assumption that the incident was tied directly to the October festival. So we now face a massive contradiction. The violent strife happens in June, but the expulsion, that happens in October. I want you to just pause for a second and ask yourself, does a school wait 4 entire months to punish a student for a violent riot? If a student assaults someone in June, they absolutely do not get permitted to stay enrolled through the summer, attend the fall festival, and then quietly get expelled in October. The silence in the tatami room deepens here as the club members realize that while they finally have a confirmed historical event, the timeline makes absolutely zero logical sense. Breaking that heavy silence, Satoshi presents his own findings from a decaying copy of the school newspaper, the Kamiyama High Monthly. And this specific data definitively kills the violence theory once and for all. The article explicitly contrasts a recent, petty fistfight with the legendary movements of the past. It states crystal clear that the historical conflict was not resolved with fists or broken glass. Instead, the entire student body stood united, maintaining their solidarity through peaceful civil disobedience. They were just stubbornly refusing to comply. The contrast between the fiery imagery of a violent riot and the quiet, unyielding power of civil disobedience, it really makes the reality of the historical event feel incredibly vivid and nuanced. Now, we reach a deeply compelling psychological shift right here. Up until now, Oreki has been a pretty passive participant, mostly just poking holes in others' ideas to save his own energy and keep the meeting moving along. But with 4 jagged, seemingly unconnected clues sitting on the table, a foreword, a manga anthology, a school newspaper, and his own dry list of historical school events, you can practically feel the air in the room shift. He goes completely quiet. His focus sharpens. Like a camera lens pulling into focus, he steps fully out of the shadows and into the role of the active solver, taking all these fragmented pieces of history and preparing to weave them into a single cohesive truth. Oreki walks the group through his deduction like the climax of a classic detective movie, methodically using the 5 W's and 1 H. Who? The entire student body. What and how? A massive, non-violent strike. But the why? The why is his absolute masterpiece. He connects a seemingly boring April speech by the principal, which demanded more focus on academics, to a single line in the Hyouka foreword celebrating the 5-day festival. The school administration wanted to shorten the unusually long 5-day cultural festival to force students to focus on studying. And the students? They were infuriated. They went on a massive strike in June to protect their cherished 5-day festival. That was the true cause of the Great Strife. And you know what? The students won. The school actually caved to the massive school-wide civil disobedience, and the 5-day festival was saved. But this is exactly where the joy of their celebration collides with cold, hard reality. It wasn't a free victory. The school administration had been deeply humiliated by a bunch of teenagers, and to save face, they demanded a scapegoat. They needed a head on a platter to reassert their broken authority. Sekitani Jun, the quiet president of the Classics Club, was pushed forward. Or perhaps he stepped forward himself as the figurehead of the movement. He became the undisputed hero who saved the festival, for sure, but he was also the designated sacrificial lamb. But what about that baffling 4-month gap between the June strike and the October expulsion? Well, Oreki solves this with cold, cynical political logic. Think about it. If the school had expelled Sekitani Jun in June, right at the absolute height of the students' passion and solidarity, it would have instantly triggered a second, probably much worse uprising. So the adults and the administration played it smart. They waited, they let the long summer pass, they let the students enjoy the very October festival they had fought so incredibly hard for. And then, once everyone was perfectly satisfied and the fiery passion had cooled into complacency, they quietly, efficiently expelled Sekitani Jun. It really highlights the devastating tragedy of high schoolers trying to fight a patient, bureaucratic system. As Oreki finishes his masterful explanation, the mood in that deeply shaded tatami room completely transforms once again. The intellectual thrill of solving the puzzle just fades away, replaced by a heavy, almost suffocating melancholy. We see Chitanda silently absorbing the heartbreaking truth about her uncle. He wasn't a legendary, fearless warrior fighting an epic battle. He was just a high school student who was offered up as a political pawn so his classmates could have a long party. The triumph of piecing the clues together gives way to the emotional weight of a very real human tragedy. It's a stark reminder that the past isn't just a fun puzzle to be solved. It's someone's life. It's someone's pain. As the meeting finally adjourns and the club members head back out into the sweltering heat of the summer evening, Chitanda is left standing alone. The historical facts of the incident have been perfectly reconstructed, yeah? But the emotional core of her mystery remains entirely untouched. If her uncle's expulsion was simply a sad political sacrifice for a school festival, what did he see to her when she was a child? What was the true hidden meaning behind that word, Hyouka? She whispers to the empty air, "But why did I end up crying that day?" It reminds us that while facts can be reconstructed, the emotional truth of history often takes much longer to uncover. So I leave you with this: what missing pieces of the past are still waiting for you to find them?